Welcome to Bunch Formation, your newest favorite college football show. I am Chris Vannini, and we're not just getting checks at our place, we're hitting people.
And I am David Ubben, and my fellow reporters, please don't preface questions to coaches who just lost a game by 34 points by letting them know that they share a birthday with some distant relatives of yours, in case you missed Dave Doran's post-game, where rarely will I defend a coach snapping at a reporter. But in this case, let's cut down on the buffoonery. Lord knows, listeners of this podcast, Chris, know there's a time and place for buffoonery. I don't know that that's it.
So you told me about this. I should have grabbed the audio for the show. I didn't think about it until the last second. But so after Miami beats NC State 41-7, Dave Doran is asked a question, but it's a long rambling opening by saying Dave Doran shares the same birthday as this person's relatives. And Dave Doran is all bewildered by the question.
Wait, what?
As well.
Now, Chris,
so
as somebody who did teach journalism for like 4 semesters and would like to do it again, in college, I'm not going to go on my rant about how you interview people, but long rambling intros to questions in which pointless facts are deduced or are passed out is not really on the board for what you want to do.
It is the underrated, one of the most important parts of the job that people don't really think about. If you ever want to see a good interview, look up any Dan Patrick interview on his show. He is so good at interviewing, just getting to the point, and people usually appreciate that. My opening comment was also post-game press conference. It was Kirby Smart after they beat Texas by basically saying, like, some people just want money. And here at Texas, or here at Georgia, basically, you might get a check, but we're not just about getting the money. We're about hitting people. And Georgia made that.
You're definitely going to get a check in Georgia, just for the record. So
yes, you are. We got a big show. We went long on the After Dark show on Saturday night. It's in your feeds, your audio feeds from Sunday. We went like an hour and a half. We had almost
we were vibing, Chris. We were vibing.
We started getting into David's breakfast rolls and French toast, but we had more than 2,500 people in there. So if you're new to the show because you caught that live show, welcome to the show, Bunch Formation. This is a much more structured show. We're going to go through a lot more games than we did last night, but we won't go as deep on the biggest games. I want to say we went 20-30 minutes on Texas A&M, South Carolina. So we won't go as long this time around. It's already in your feeds there. Wanted to again shout out listener Kristen Miller. We did this last night. She tweets us on Saturday saying she saw a commercial that used the very same music you heard at the opening of this episode, the Bunch Formation theme. I went back and looked. It was indeed that, a Rush Hour tease using the same music that I found from a royalty-free website when I was setting up this show. So Rush Hour tease, we either need to fight or you need to sponsor this show or something. So maybe we can figure that out. But thank you to Kristen for letting us know about that.
Chris, I was under the impression that we paid a composer 5 figures to come up with the 15-second riff that starts the show. Did you not? What was that expense for then?
The first 2 months of uploading the videos to YouTube, it would always be flagged as copyright. But I have the license that I got through the royalty-free site. And so I'd have to manually copy-paste the license in there for 2 months. And then eventually YouTube and the guy or something it goes through now without a problem. So that's great. That's like good. The theme.
I'm glad
it's bouncy. It's fun. I like that.
Makes me want to buy a t-shirt, Chris.
Yeah. We will be live on Tuesday night for the college football playoff rankings reaction show again, as we have the last 2 weeks. We'll go live as soon as it goes live on ESPN. And this will be the halftime of the Champions, or the middle between the halftime of the Champions Classic basketball game. So the time is not exactly set, but whenever ESPN goes live, we'll go live. That'll be on the YouTube channel as well as our Twitter accounts. Check out the show notes if you want to jump ahead to anything. We got timestamps in there, and hit us up at bunchformationpod@gmail.com for any feedback. Please leave reviews on wherever you listen to your shows. We have no 5-star reviews to talk about. It's been like a week or two now. So folks, I know how many people listen to the show. Please leave a 5-star rating and a review. It helps us. We'll shout you out on the show. It's good for everybody. So we'll just skip all that now. And before we get into the games, David has a take about the conversation around the season and the college football playoff. And to get into that, we will go to the heat check.
Analytics, throw them in the garbage.
Chris, I sense a growing disturbance in the force, which is basically there's going to be some jockeying for the last couple spots in the playoff. And in that conversation, there is a lot of, I sense, resentment toward the G5 bid, which isn't technically the G5 bid, but it's the 5 highest ranked conference champions. And there's only 4 major conferences. We'll see what the new Pac-12 looks like. Basically, it's a G5 bid. And there's this idea that, well, we're trying to get the 12 best teams in. And a 3-loss team from the SEC or the Big Ten would beat those teams. Or if that team had to go into the Big Ten, they'd lose 4 games. That might be true, Chris. But again, I think people forget what the playoff is actually about, which is about crowning a national champion. And if you do that, if you say, we just want the 12 best teams, all the 6 conferences that aren't the major conferences, y'all go take your ball and go play at the kids' table. You're basically saying, hey, half the teams in college football, we don't really care what you do. If you win all your games, we don't really want you at the table. And what you do doesn't matter. And additionally, there is a chaos element to some of this and an element of having a team in the bracket that can possibly throw a wrench into things. And I think anytime we compare the 12-team playoff to the NCAA tournament, it is imperfect. But I think most people would agree that if the NCAA tournament were just the 68 quote-unquote best teams, it would be a worse product. And I don't think that's because college football necessarily hates the Cinderella, but there's a level of access in that anyone can win that. And the fact that you have teams that you haven't watched all season that can get in there. And I think that most I don't say most college football fans, most fans of sports aren't watching South Florida or Tulane or whatever on Wednesday and Thursday night. And I think having those teams have a presence and I think a lot of the times those teams are a lot better than people realize. In general, yes, similar to March Madness, is really, really, really important for the sport. And the whole point is, can you measure up? And we already know that the 3 and 4-loss teams or whoever, even the 2-loss teams from the Big Ten, the SEC, they had their chance and they didn't measure up.
Yeah.
You have to have access and you have to have a representative from the G6 in the bracket. Period.
So,
if you want to have what we call a coherent sport.
So I was thinking about that today, actually, when I was putting together my 136 rankings, and it just kind of hit me again of if you're a top 10 ranked team, you will be in the field. Mm-hmm. Now this year, it might be a little bit different because ACC, the ACC champ probably won't be in the top 11. So you'll have the top 10 perhaps, and whoever wins the ACC and the group of 5. And I think that's a pretty good cutoff point. If you're not in the top 10, I don't want to hear you complaining all that much. I do not care if a team ranked outside of the top 10 does not get a playoff spot and a group of 5 team does. I just don't. I think ultimately you want to give somebody a shot. And the numbers back up that this is usually pretty competitive. So in the New Year 6 era, 2014 and onward, when the group of 5 got at least one automatic spot somewhere, group of 5 teams went 4-6 in those games with, I think, 3 one-score losses. That's a pretty competitive situation. Boise State last year lost to Penn State by a smaller margin than Tennessee lost its first game, than SMU lost its first game, than Oregon lost its first game. Not to say Boise's better than them, but Boise also took number 1 Oregon to the last play of the game when they played last season. So most years, the best group of 5 team is competitive in at least one game where they get that opportunity. It's not like every year has been that one year Liberty went to the Fiesta Bowl and it was a mess. That is not how it normally is. That was an outlier. SMU moved up from the G5 to the ACC and immediately finished in first place in the conference. So like, I'm fine with the group of 5 having a spot. This is going to be a year now where the group of 5 team will not be ranked in the top 12, as was the case last year. And so this was a conversation that was always going to come up. And I hate it. And like people like Will Compton and Danny Cannell and Brandon Walker are all like posting things about, do we really need to give a spot to one of these teams?
Yes,
like
we do.
Yes. Because I don't care if you're ranked outside the top 10 and you're not in. And if you're right there on the edge, too bad. You knew what you had to do. And if you're upset that you're in an SEC that's really difficult now, well, guess what? No one made you join that conference. You know, you did that after the 12-team playoff was announced. People forget that. It was announced when we had 5 power conference teams at the time. So you guys are the ones who changed it up. And I'm this is going to expand to either 16 or more at some point, potentially still next year. There's an outside chance they come to an agreement on it. It also doesn't matter because the group of 5 champion is guaranteed to be there for the next at least like 6 years, because when they signed the new deal like 2 years ago for this next 6 years of the playoff, they continued to guarantee spots to the 5 highest ranked conference champions. That's not changing. So you can complain all you want that a group of 5 team doesn't deserve, and even if they get blown out in their first game, it doesn't matter. It's not changing. Stop complaining about it. Get a better football team. That's it.
And I think too, it's worth reiterating that to me, the whole point of the playoff is every team that has a case to win the national championship, to be the best team in the country, should get a chance to decide that on the field. This is why I like the 8-team playoff, which for a million different reasons, you don't need to rehash, is not going to happen. But that cutoff was usually like 5 or 6 teams.
I don't even know if I agree with that. I don't even know if I agree with that anymore, because I don't know if Ohio State would have made it last year, frankly, in an 8-team. But
well, if Ohio State wouldn't
neither
have
here
been
nor
in the
there.
18th playoff, I think that would have been fine. Clearly, they were a best team, but based on what they had done during that season, I don't know if they necessarily deserve to play for it. All that to be said, that's what I wanted the playoff to be, is every team who had a case to be crowned the best team in the country should get to decide it on the field. We are way over that number of teams. So again, I don't know how you can enjoy sports and competition and something close to a meritocracy and be clamoring for a 3-loss team from a power conference and not really care about and I will say, listen, this year has been a little bit, I think that top of the American is pretty good. They're beating themselves up, but they have some quality wins. There's not like that undefeated team that everybody is coalescing around that we've had in some years. But we always need to have that representative, because the entire sport needs to be represented, biggest stage of the sport. And if you don't think so, I don't really know what the point of watching the sport is if you just don't care about half the sport.
Go watch the NFL if you just want 30 teams.
Legitimately, yes.
Essentially.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, Dave, you have another take here, but it ties into the first game we're going to talk about. So let's just do that. Let's get to the game recaps.
The kids are playing their tail off, and the coaches are screwing it up.
Speaking of coaches who were involved in a major comeback, that coach, John L. Smith, is the coach for the largest comeback in college football history, when Michigan State 2006 came back down 35 points at halftime to beat Northwestern and Pat Fitzgerald.
But he smiled after, I'm guessing.
He also got fired in that same season. But Texas A&M 31, South Carolina 30. South Carolina was up 30-3 at halftime. Texas A&M scores on its next like 4 or 5 possessions to come back and win. Crazy game. Was there a moment ever where you thought Texas A&M was done? Like when I thought it was done at halftime. I thought there was no way they could make the comeback. Did you think there was any?
Yeah, I mean, that after the last pick just gave South Carolina 3 more points, it was like, what are y'all doing? Like 20-3, I thought it was like, well, you can make this a game if you can get it to like, 10 at half. And then like they just kept digging the hole deeper and deeper. But yeah, the last pick where you just gave them 3 more points going to the locker room, I was like, all right, well, this is pretty much over.
But your take about this game.
So life, Chris, is full of a lot of big moments, things that make you feel one thing or another. But those don't like come along that often. You have like the birth of a child, or, you get married, or you graduate, or you have these things where there's like deep emotions one way or the other that feel that way. But most people in their day-to-day life don't really like experience these extreme highs and lows of emotions. And I think one of the reasons why we like sports in general, but college football, I think to some degree as well. I mean, how many things in life, Chris, if you're a South Carolina fan, if you're a Texas A&M fan, or if they're people that had financial investment in that game, could send you to the pits of despair and the highest of highs in the same 3-hour window. It just really encapsulated why we love sports, because even I was pretty uninvested in that game, but just watching it, you're like, I felt really bad for A&M fans, and then I felt really bad for South Carolina fans, but then I felt really good for the A&M people who like didn't have to get their heart ripped out after they got their heart ripped out for about an hour and a half at the start of the game. So I think that's the take, is that game reminded us, I think, why we love sports, because for all the sometimes games aren't the greatest, and sometimes we have to watch Iowa football, but more often than not, the games really make you feel something, and I think that's part of why we love it.
There's a quote from, I don't remember who it was, if it was Peter Gammons or Buster Olney or somebody who said like, they love baseball because every day, like, there's a chance you'll see something you've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this was. That's why I like college football, and I like enjoying it from a national perspective, which not everybody does. A lot of people only watch their team in a couple games, but I like kind of having the multi-view up and watching everything, because there's going to be some game or something you didn't expect to be pulled into, and it takes you for a ride. And that was this here. Like, for Texas A&M fans to think like, all right, oh man, here comes the egg we're going to lay. What is this going to mean for the playoff? We thought we were going to kind of cruise to the SEC championship here, and you make that comeback and you win. And I remember when I was a senior at Michigan State in 2010, Michigan State fell behind like a bad Purdue team on senior day. And MSU's down 15 entering the fourth quarter. They come back, they block a punt, they end up winning the game. And it's just like, sometimes you have a team where just everything goes right. And those seasons, those journeys are ones you never forget. And that's one that Texas A&M is never going to forget here. They are now 10-0. They are going to the college football playoff. Have not clinched the spot in the SEC championship game yet. But, you know, when that game when Texas A&M pulled it within 13, that's when I was like, oh, A&M's won this game. Like, you could just tell. Like, everything had completely like, you could have never imagined that was going to happen, because the throws that Marcel Reed was making were so bad in that first half. The underthrow,
and then they were so good.
Touchdown, the interception. They were like, he could have thrown 6 interceptions in that first half, legit.
Yeah, probably should have, honestly.
And then in the second half, he looked like a Heisman Trophy winner. And it's like, how does that happen? Like, that only happens in this weird sport. That
I will say, I think people are kind of sleeping on Marcel Reed in the Heisman conversation. He's like kind of hovering on the fringes, but he's got the Texas game in Austin, and if he wins got the SEC championship game, there's a world in which Marcel Reed, who threw for 439 yards yesterday, there's a world in which he plays himself into New York City and maybe more. Yeah. I just think, you know, the playoff field obviously at the bottom has a lot to shake out, but I don't remember the Heisman being as wide open as it is, with a ton of games that are really going to have an extremely acute impact on it.
Yeah.
Like this last year, we were in the throes of like the Genty Hunter debate, that like it was a 2-horse race and stuff would kind of shift week to week. Genty obviously slowed down a lot during the back half of the season as Colorado kind of got hot late. But man, like, we talk about like dark. The Michigan and the Big Ten championship game for Julian Sayin are going to be huge. That Big Ten championship game, the winning quarterback might win the Heisman. We'll see if Marcel Reed can heat it up. I guess Gunnar Stockton's kind of like still in the conversation. Again,
he's in
that's
there.
One that
he's
like,
in there.
To me, again, I don't know how you watch the season and say that's the best player in the country, but hey.
Like Mendoza, Sayin, Reed, Jeremiah Love, Jacob Rodriguez, Gunnar Stockton. Like, it's It's got to be one of those like 6. I can't see anybody else really sneaking up unless Jeremiah Smith has. I guess Jeremiah Smith could jump up because he's Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah,
and
but I
people
mean, if he
know
goes
him.
for like 2
But, like-
bills against Michigan and then catches like 3 touchdowns in the Big Ten championship, and
Yeah.
because like Chris, I think we're in agreement. Like Jeremiah Smith is the best player in the country. Period. I don't think the gap has been that far this year, but like in terms of just like the best pure player, I think we agree he's the best actual football player.
Yeah, but the award is never about
The
going to
production.
the best
I know
actual
that's
player.
not, but the production hasn't been like fantastic
Yeah.
from him for a bajillion different
So-
reasons. But yeah,
So, also in Texas A&M news, no update on Sunday as of recording about that Texas State trooper who bumped himself into Nick Harbor and some South Carolina players. We talked about that extensively on the last show. You can go back and listen to that. But as I kind of like rewatched it again and looked back and thought about it, one of the strangest things I've seen in a college football game, and really the only thing I could compare it to is what I mentioned, which was that Texas player and the Marine at Ole Miss back in the day, which is like an
what a great
incredible
gift,
moment.
by the way. It's like great.
But like it exactly like that was a fun moment because both of them just kind of stood ground. Nobody put hands on each other. There wasn't nothing disrespectful. Like it was like just 2 people kind of in their faces.
Well, the
and Marine
touchdown
just
like
standing-
naturally took him right in front of the
Yeah.
the Marine guy. Like
This-
the trooper like went out of his way. There's no reason for him to be in that tunnel. I
Yeah.
don't even, like I said, I think
I
it's
don't-
just a
I-
guy
yeah,
who
I
was
don't.
frustrated and was mad that A&M was losing and like just did something stupid.
And he missed the comeback as a result too. Also Mike Elko's extension now leaked before the game. I reported it along with others before the game. They did announce it after the game, so good thing he came back and won. But it's a 6-year deal that'll pay him probably more than $11 million a year. I don't have the details on buyout and whatnot. That hasn't been released yet. But Mike Elko not going to Penn State, sticking to Texas A&M. I'll be there in Austin in 2 weeks. Cannot wait.
Still waiting for because I know it's coming, Chris, and I'm curious if you have a prediction on this. Of the first thing.
Yep, David, you frozen. All
A
right.
handful.
Out your back.
I think there's going to be. I think there's going to be a handful of those moments. And I'm
Hold on.
curious.
Wait. Hold on. You froze for a minute. What did you say? There's
Okay.
going to be what?
Yeah, we can cut 3.
No, you're good. Keep going. Just keep going.
Okay.
Just keep going.
Yeah. So, Chris, I think I'm still waiting for the first moment of the coaching carousel that's like truly surprising. I know there's going to be probably a handful, and we haven't really had anything close to it just yet. And I'm curious if you have a prediction of something that you could see coming down the line that is truly shocking to people.
I mean, it would be things that we've kind of talked about, which is the idea that would Lincoln Riley leave USC? Like, he said, I'm where I need to be a couple weeks ago. But it's been talked about for a while that people have said he might go somewhere. We don't know the cost it takes for him to leave. He's not going to get fired. Then now they're 8-2. So like maybe you don't want to leave now. They have the number 1 recruiting class. But Baylor isn't open, but Baylor's probably going to open. And that's a place people have wondered as well. Like in terms of if a G5 coach takes a job, that's not going to be a surprise. If Eli Drinkwitz or Lane Kiffin leaves, that's not going to be a surprise. But there will be some that we don't see coming necessarily.
I think what's going to happen is I think that there's a coach out there who has been quietly stewing about 1, rev share percentage, 2, the NIL budget that his school has, and probably hasn't raised it. Because if you raise a big stink about it, the point is not to complain. The point is to provoke your boosters into action. But there might be somebody who feels like there's not a lot of hope there.
So Kenny Dillingham kind of talked about this after their game on Saturday, where his name had popped up as like, hey, he be a name at a couple of these jobs? And Dillingham reportedly told people he wasn't leaving, but never really said it publicly. And then he kind of alluded to that at the end of the post-game press conference the other day, where he was asked about staying and whatnot, and he's like, I was never leaving, but my job here is to activate the Valley, to get people invested, to make sure we're keeping up with where we need to go. So like, I think Kenny Dillingham was okay with his name being out there a little bit, because maybe it woke up some Arizona State people who were like, maybe we need to give this guy a little bit more stuff to compete. Which is why coaches like their names being floated out there sometimes, because sometimes they are upset about something and want to leave. Sometimes they just want to get something done on their end.
I think just in general, I think, it goes to the thing about, where I was talking about, I do believe Texas Tech's a top 5 job in the sport, is that the quality of jobs has changed underneath the surface. And I think a lot of coaches, a lot of agents recognize this. I don't know that fans recognize that your job has gotten better or worse based on how easy it is to put together a roster. And I think this coaching carousel, when you have a lot of big schools open, a lot of big names possibly moving, a lot of moving parts, I think it's going to expose some of that and have some tough conversations with places that, one, thought they were better than they actually were, and two, some Texas Techs out there that are like, oh, like the Texas A&M, Texas Tech's obviously the best example.
Well,
like,
no, it goes the other way.
That are well funded.
This also goes in the teams that kept their coach. And let's just move to the hot seat watch. Since we're having this conversation, let's just move this up right now. Hot seat watch. Baylor, as I mentioned, they got destroyed 55-28. Utah rushed for like almost 400 yards. Baylor's 5-5. They were expecting to have a better season and compete for the Big 12. They lose all of their passing offense this year. It's time to kind of do a reset. And people think there could be a change there. But AD Mac Rhodes is on leave because of some allegations that are not clear what they are yet. It's not involving the situation with him and Michael Trigg and yelling at some coaches. That's a separate thing. But Baylor doesn't have a full-time AD right now. So I don't know. Nobody's quite sure what the Baylor situation is here. Like, can you make a change and do a search if you don't have your AD? We don't know. But Baylor is kind of in that spot where, like, you see Texas Tech doing what they're doing, and if you're a fan, you're thinking, why are we not doing that? We should be on their level. Well, Baylor doesn't have a Cody Campbell spending money on that. They have a Drayton McClain who will put his name on state and the family and all that and putting names on stadiums, but not quite at the player level. Like, I've talked to people, Baylor's money situation with the roster is like, it's been described as like, okay. And they took some big swings on some of the freshmen they have on this year's roster, but they're not near a Texas Tech level of spending. And so that impacts the quality. Suddenly Texas Tech looks like a much better job than Baylor. And you wouldn't have thought that even a year ago. No. But that's how these things can change. And the flip side for people who are staying, Illinois beat Maryland 24-6. On Sunday, Maryland's AD announced that Mike Locksley will be back next season. And the same thing as Wisconsin, where it's like, we need to give him more NIL resource to do this and that. And they've got some young freshmen that are pretty talented. They've got a top 5 recruit, the defensive lineman from Baltimore, coming in. But like, Maryland fans are checked out on Mike Locksley. And so like, how can you convince them to then pay for the players? So like, what do you think about that whole thing?
I mean, it's always going to be a balance. We hit on this a little bit on the After Dark, and when people check out, I think it's safe to say, Chris, there's no way to get people back in. Like, this goes to the 7-year itch idea. There's a lot of people who think like no coach should be somewhere for more than 10 years. I think Dabo's experiencing some of this too. Like, you lose people, and I don't know anything short of a national title you can get them back. And
I mean, not at Maryland.
I know, but I'm just saying in general, like, I think it's true pretty much everywhere that if he won 10 games next year, I still don't know that would win him back a lot of the fan base.
It would. Like, he had been, the problem with Locksley is, I had the number somewhere, but he's like something like 21-5 in August, September, and then like 15-35 in October and November, and every single year is the same
Chris,
thing.
I don't think that's true, because there's a perfect example that's walking around on the hot seat right now, which is Mike Norvell. Okay, and obviously he was not that far. I mean, I wrote about the Fire Mike Norvell Twitter Spaces. Like, he was persona non grata there for a while. Then they get hot, they hit in the portal, they go 13-0. And like, they get the extension and people are excited, and suddenly people are talking about the Alabama job, which I never thought made sense. But then the bottom falls out the next year, and people are reminded, oh, actually, we hate this guy. And then this year it's been kind of up and down. And so you say that 10 games might win it back, but it doesn't. It lengthens your leash slightly. But the first time you take a bad loss, then you're right back where you started. And that mattered in the past, but it matters more now because that hampers your ability to pay for a roster.
It's South Carolina. Like you're allowed basically one bad year, and then fans will kind of get antsy with you. And we're seeing that even less than 1 year for South Carolina for what they did and
Crazy,
blowing that game and preseason top 15 team not living up to it. You've seen Michigan fans not loving Sharon Moore. After last year was kind of all right, you get a year off to kind of do this, but people are upset about that. And so, yes, nowhere is 10 wins is not going to give Mike Locksley 5 more years at Maryland. No, but it will stop people from saying we need a coaching change until they feel like they do. The other one of these, Penn State 28, Michigan State 10, Jonathan Smith revealed after the game that he did not know and was not told about the NCAA investigation that was started by MSU themselves by self-reporting when he took the job, which is a major what? Is Michigan State hiding this from their prospective coach? And if you're that coach, you should be pretty upset. But also, it's now the Michigan State job is not as appealing because you have these recruiting penalties for the next couple of years where it's if you spend all this money to get rid of Jonathan Smith, which they don't really have, who's going to want the job in that situation? And I think Michigan State fans have learned, we're not the job we thought we were when Mark D'Antonio was going to Rose Bowls and stuff like that. And Mel Tucker went to a Peach Bowl and all this kind of stuff because it turned out they don't actually have as much money as they think they do, which I wrote about a couple of years ago. And so now you're kind of stuck. And when fans feel stuck, they don't then want to donate the money to fix it because they think the only thing that can fix it is a new guy. And that is a position Wisconsin fans are in, Maryland fans are in, Michigan State fans are in, where Big Ten fans largely will not pay up until they've seen proof of concept. They will not pay to become good the way that Ole Miss did, the way that Texas Tech did, and all these other things. And that is a bit of a culture thing that they're still kind of working through. And so you have these weird hot seat situations.
Chris, I'm told it just means more.
Also, by the way, Florida State beat Virginia Tech 34-14. Mike Norvell safe for another week. They finish with Florida and I keep forgetting NC State. So you win those next two games.
Wild ride this year.
If you've gone from 2-10 to 7-5, you can say, look, we've made progress. Give me another year. And they want to because they don't want to pay a $59 million buyout to a school that also
jump into this coaching carousel.
The same. Yeah, it does not have the same amount of money. All right. Getting back to the big games. Oklahoma 23, Alabama 21. As I kind of look back on this game, two games in a row, Oklahoma's margin for error is very small because of the way that they play. And it has hit against Tennessee and against Alabama, where you get defensive scores, you get some turnovers, you get some short fields, you turn them into enough points that you hang on and win the game. And Alabama has never beaten Oklahoma in the regular season, apparently. But the last 2 years, Oklahoma versus Alabama, Oklahoma's defense has 2 pick sixes, and the offense has 5 scoring drives under 35 yards long, plus a 41-yard scoring drive, because the turnover margin in those 2 games, 6-1. So 2 years in a row, Alabama has been just completely suffocated by turnovers from the Oklahoma defense. And that is 2 of the losses for Kalen DeBoer to Oklahoma. Just wild stuff.
It's kind of amazing to see Oklahoma get off the mat. Chris, we have Austin Mock at The Athletic who has his model. And after Oklahoma lost to Ole Miss, and if you go back and look at what Oklahoma's resume was at the time, they had a home win over an okay Michigan team. They beat Auburn, but that was kind of a dogfight. They lose to Texas in a lopsided way. They beat a floundering South Carolina team, albeit on the road, and they lose to Ole Miss. That was what they had done. They had about a 5% chance of making the playoff because you're looking ahead at their schedule. They've got at Tennessee, who is in the playoff hunt, at Bama, who was a Big 12 title, or SEC title contender. Then you got Missouri, who's looking good at the time, and then LSU. Now, after beating Tennessee, after beating Alabama, both on the road, they have like a 55% chance to make the field. They got to beat Missouri.
That's some Steiner math right there.
Yeah. Like, you got to do that. LSU, you got to beat. They got both those games at home.
That's the thing.
But
that's
they're
the thing.
Like, probably 10 with some really good wins.
If Oklahoma wins out, they're in 10-2 with enough of those wins. Now you're in. But how comfortable do you feel against Missouri and LSU, given kind of how little your offense has actually done in these last two games? That's why it's not like I'm feeling comfortable about Oklahoma getting to necessarily a 10-2, but they have really bounced back in a big way to get themselves back into this position. And that's a credit to Brent Venables and what he does, and Eli and Peyton Bowen, whose names we don't know why are Peyton and Eli. And we're still going to investigate that, as we talked about.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a weird tenure for Brent Venables, but I think he's on the short list of coaches who everyone in that place wants them to succeed very badly. Yes, and is doing everything they can to make that happen, and it's come to fruition this year. It's been up and down. I don't think it's been what people were kind of hoping. I think obviously there was a lot of belief from the Oklahoma side that when Lincoln left, it's like, well, the program was quietly eroding and he's going to make us better. They've been not what they were under Lincoln Riley, but they're here and they're on the right side of the numbers for the playoffs. So yeah, like you said, credit to Brent Venables, credit to Oklahoma for digging in and trying to make this work, and it's working.
I'm very curious where Alabama's going to be on the playoff rankings on Tuesday, because as I was putting it together, I think I ended up putting Bama I put them at 10, because now you're a 2-loss team. So you're up against the Notre Dame and stuff like that. And Alabama has 4 really good wins. They have 4 ranked wins, but they also had that Florida State loss. And it was easier to kind of brush it aside when they're a 1-loss team and rolling. But now when you're a 2-loss team and you have a loss at home and you have that Florida State loss, that still counts for something. You only get 12 data points on these things. And 10-2 Alabama probably in, just by the nature of the way these things work themselves out. But I have no idea where to put Alabama on Tuesday.
I don't either, but I think there'll be enough movement in these last 3 weeks, especially with SoCon Saturday and the SEC coming up. I mean, you start looking at who's going to be hosting. You know, Lubbock might be in there. Certainly Tuscaloosa in the mix. We'll see if they win the SEC.
David, you have frozen again. So I'm going to move this ahead. Going to jump into Georgia 35, Texas 10. And I put the numbers together because I said on the preview show, I thought Texas had no shot against Georgia because I saw what happened last year. I've seen the way that Kirby Smart owns Sark. And guess what happened? The same thing happened. Texas made it close.
It was like the least competitive close game-ish.
Like you look at the box score and it's like, like there's some stuff here, but no. Texas against Georgia the last 2 years, over 3 games. Texas over 3 games against Georgia has 83 total rushing yards across 3 games. They have scored 13.6 points per game, not counting a extra field goal in overtime. 8 turnovers and 3 losses. Like, Sark just does not have it. Like, Alabama to Georgia is what Georgia is to Texas. And some of these teams have these like measuring sticks you put up against. And Texas is just not on Georgia's level and hasn't been for a couple of years now. And they still aren't. And Georgia just suffocated them. And Georgia's last 2 games, probably their best 2 games of the year, they may be rounding into form where, you know, we may be on path to an Ohio State Georgia national championship game, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, you know, at the end of the day, the talent is what the talent is. And that's why people are so scared of Alabama and Georgia, even as you look at Ole Miss and you look at Texas A&M, and Georgia and Alabama have better rosters, even though they haven't looked like better teams necessarily all the time. And so I will say, by the way, to your analogy, Alabama and Georgia was competitive in almost all those games. Texas Kirby has beaten Alabama 1 time.
I think, right? And it
I
was a national
know,
championship
but
game.
there were some weird games in there. You got the fake punt game in the SEC championship. You've got the 2nd and 26 game where they dominated basically 3/4 of that game.
I'm just saying,
Like the
it's
difference there was Georgia was a better team than Alabama in like half of the games that Kirby lost.
I
And
wouldn't
then
say that.
Texas just gets bullied when they play them.
Yeah. So Georgia looks really good. It's weird, like looking back, like Georgia, the first half of the season, really not that good. You should have lost at Tennessee, really. You're really struggling against Auburn. You're struggling against Florida. You lose to Alabama. And it's like, what is this team really? And then Mississippi State and Texas, they have really found it. They are getting better. I do think it's a concern. CJ Allen got hurt. They're a really good linebacker. We don't know his status as of recording.
Great.
Yeah, that's a problem. Gunnar Stockton, by the way, 24 for 29 passing, 5 total touchdowns against a good Texas defense. Like Gunnar's he's playing very well. So shout out to him.
The teams that want to sling it are going to give Georgia some issues. We've already seen that this year. So I think for them in the playoff, I think it'll be really, really matchup dependent. There's some teams that they're going to match up really well and get really well against, and there's some teams that Georgia probably would not particularly want to draw. Like if Georgia played like Michigan, like good Lord, I think they'd win that game by like 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. Notre Dame 35, Pitt 17 was never really competitive at all from the beginning. Notre Dame went up. Mason Heinchel, the Pitt freshman quarterback, looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the world. He could not see anything, flushed out of the pocket a lot. Just a real mess of a game. Notre Dame dominated this. Jeremiah Love, 147 yards, 23 carries, 1 touchdown. The awesome spin move in the second level. Notre Dame easily took care of business here. Any other thoughts?
No, I think it's just, again, Notre Dame strengthening their case. I don't know how loud the complaints will be if they're sitting there at 10-2, or who they'd even be coming from, because I think it's pretty thin. But they need to have
Miami fans. That's who. We'll
but they need to be sort of unimpeachable at this point, because they're not going to have the wins that you can just point to the resume. You're going to have to point to what they do on the field, and more often than not, they've looked really, really solid on the field, even though the resume. I mean, it's a lesser version of Ohio State. It's like, Ohio State's resume stinks, but like they look like the best team in the country.
That's an example of like, where do you rank Bama relative to Notre Dame? I don't know what the committee is going to do. You can make a very strong case. I moved Oklahoma ahead of Notre Dame, by the way. I don't know if the committee will. You can make the case for Alabama. I didn't because of the Florida State loss, but you can make the case still. I also have Miami ahead of Notre Dame. We know the committee doesn't. We will see. Ole Miss 35, Florida 24. Ole Miss just like it plays with its food too much. For a team that is like right hovering around the top 5, they're generally not as dominant as I think you would like. And Florida was leading this game at halftime. It took a late touchdown to win this game by 2 scores. If Lacey had 224 yards, 3 touchdowns. He won you the game. Like that was it.
They're basically the upside down version of Arkansas in a lot of ways. You look at them, 7-point win against Kentucky, 6-point win against Arkansas, which they maybe should have lost that game. They got that late fumble. That's ended that drive. You smash Tulane, beat LSU by 5, beat a not great Washington State team by 3. You lose to Georgia in a game that you probably should have won. Beat Oklahoma by 8. They dominated South Carolina, Citadel. They beat Florida. They look good. Got to be careful in the Egg Bowl. Mississippi State has kind of been right there all season. They did get another win against Arkansas.
What's interesting is that both of these teams in the Egg Bowl have a bye going into it. That's going to be fascinating for that game.
By the way,
2 weeks.
real quickly, can I offer a half-hearted defense of SoCon Saturday?
You're the one who wanted this podcast to go an hour, so you're the one who's making it long.
Fair enough.
So feel free.
Fair enough. Yes.
Yeah, no, wait. No. Here's it. Save it for the preview show. We'll get to it later.
Right. We'll hit on it on the preview.
Yeah. By the way, I got multiple text messages about your take about Lane Kiffin and the Kurt Signetti comparison. For people who didn't catch it, he tweeted it. We talked about it Saturday. David says what Lane Kiffin has done at Ole Miss to bring high level consistency.
50 wins in 5 years and counting. They're still going to have a few more this year.
Is like similar to what Kurt Signetti's done at Indiana, basically. And
I said the gap is smaller than people think, is what I said.
Okay. I got multiple texts from people who were like, is David like serious about this? Like they were not sure if you were joking. Our friend our friend Antonio Morales, who covered college football in Mississippi for a while, also texted us, please tell me this was a joke. I again don't even understand the comparison between a school that had 4 different coaches take them to a New Year's Six Bowl since 2000 versus an Indiana that had never had a 10-win season and now has 2 in a row and is going to 2 straight college football playoffs.
And nobody could sustain it. And I think having 2 great years
Hugh
is something
Freeze
that you can
kind
do
of
at a lot of
sustained it,
places.
other than getting himself fired. It's not like, anyway, we don't need to repeat it. Just know that if you're listening and you thought that he was, but he was paying players, which Lane Kiffin is now too. So you could say that. But
legally,
if you thought the take was as insane as I did, please leave a comment. Send an email to bunchformation.
Maybe we'll tackle it in a mailbag.
Or if you agree, maybe we'll hit it on the mailbag as well. Or if you agree or disagree. So there's that. USC 26, Iowa 21. Lincoln Riley after the game called this a culture win. And I think I have to agree. Like, if you're new to the Big Ten and you beat Iowa in the rain the same way Oregon did last week, like that's a culture win. You win a Big Ten kind of game against the most Big Ten team there is, down 14-0 at home early on.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big, like, I'm a fan of this USC.
I don't know that it's as much a style thing as much as I think people forget or just don't know when, like, USC has basically been playing for their season every week since they lost to Notre Dame.
Yep.
And
since they lost to Illinois, even.
Yeah, to go down 14-0 to really anyone, but especially a defense that good, requires a level of like maturity and togetherness that you can, call it a Disney movie, call it Pollyannish and laugh, but like that's real. Like, hey, everybody keep doing your job one play at a time, and to go back and win that game is really impressive. So I agree with you on some level. It's about the rain. It's about Iowa. It's about all those things. But I think it's more just like in a hole, staring the end of your season down the barrel and rallying and winning a game anyway.
Yeah. They are a tougher team than people realize. I think they don't think about it because it's USC, because they have those receivers, because it's Lincoln Riley. This team can run the ball pretty well. They are a lot more physical than they have been. They've beaten Iowa and Michigan at home this year. For a team that that gave up so many fourth quarter leads last year, to be on the other side of that, big deal. Also, Kirk Ferentz called Mekhi Lemon, the USC receiver, like maybe the best he's ever seen. Like one of the best receivers he's ever seen.
Well, he spent a lot of time in the Big Ten West, so let's take it easy.
He saw some pretty darn good Ohio State wide receivers a lot, and that's high praise and well deserved. I mean, those guys have been awesome. Georgia Tech 36, Boston College. Oh, by the way, USC finishes with, they have Oregon next week, big game. Loser maybe out of the playoff at that point, so that'll be a lot of fun. Georgia Tech beats Boston College 36-34, a field goal in the final seconds. Georgia Tech's defense has allowed more than 1,100 yards in the last 2 games against NC State and Boston College, to the point where I thought the Georgia Tech game was going to be competitive because it usually is under Brent Key. I'm now thinking it's not going to be.
No bad wins in the ACC. Just win.
Oh, okay. Boston College now won.
The ACC is like but you're basically playing Squid Game every week. Like just win.
Boston College is now 1-10, but we are not down.
What's up, Trevor?
Yeah.
Michigan 24, Northwestern 22. Michigan lost his turnover battle 5-0 and still kicked a field goal to win the game. Like, I kind of come out of this game like almost impressed with both teams. Like, for Michigan to overcome that and still get a win and keep your college football playoff hopes alive. If you miss that field goal at the end, you're done. Like, you're not going to the playoff. So you win it in that fashion. Great fight. And Northwestern, like, largely went toe-to-toe with a really good team. And David Braun continues to have, like, a solid enough program there. I think the ceiling at Northwestern is very low in the current day and age of college football. But, like, I think they're 5-5 now. Like, they play hard. And I think that's a credit to them.
similar to Georgia Tech, we're kind of in just win season for some of these, and also stop playing football games at Wrigley Field. We don't need it. The camera
Look, it's
angles are
better.
bad. Like the whole thing sucks. Please stop.
It's better than that one. The first year they did it, they could only go in the one direction. The Illinois Northwestern game back in the day. So there's that. All right,
Just
now let's
stop.
go
We don't
to
need it.
American Corner presented by Soar the Eagle. Navy beats USF 41-38 and knocks USF out of the picture. Not going to the playoff, probably not making the conference championship at this point either. Meanwhile, Tulane beat FAU 35-24. East Carolina beat Memphis 31-27, knocking Memphis out. That means
nobody's talking about ECU. They're hovering. They're right there.
And so, like, it's known that, like, Tulane, USF, and Memphis are far and above the most expensive rosters in that conference. They have the most money, especially USF, and I think Memphis is number 2. Mm-hmm. Two of those teams are out of the race pretty much with 2 weeks to go. That's not great. And, like, a lot of these coaches who are the hot names are suddenly, like, sliding down the stretch here. Alex Golish, Ryan Silverfield. We'll see with Tulane and John Summerall, but they had the bad loss to UTSA. Jeff Brom has lost 2 in a row. Brent Key has had 2 very bad weeks back to back. Eli Drinkwitz got to win, but you know, they may have some more losses down the stretch here. Like, you may not have a lot of coaches who are like riding high into the carousel to get another job. And it's going to be interesting.
That's John Gruden and Ed Orgeron's music. Play it.
Because someone sent me a stat. Alex Golish is apparently 1-7 against conference opponents with a winning record. That one game, though, was North Texas this year, which they did dominate. And so I think USF is the best team in the conference, but you got to win games.
Them and Tulane are kind of neck and neck for me.
So we've got Navy at 6. We have 4 teams with 1 loss. Navy at 6-1. Then North Texas, Tulane, ECU all at 5-1. Tulane has beaten ECU. North Texas has beaten Navy. They haven't played each other otherwise. They don't play each other again because the conferences are way too damn big. I ultimately went with North Texas as my top group of 5 team because they have the win over Navy and they blew out UTSA, who whipped Tulane. So on that front, I have North Texas as my top G5 team. Now their schedule is like 127th. It's not great, but I've got North Texas there. We don't need to go through the tiebreakers and whatnot, but like of these teams, what do you think?
Who's the best or who should be the highest ranked?
I mean, I think USF's the best and they're not in it. So who's going to make it, I guess.
Yeah, both. I mean, I would lean probably North Texas. I like what they've done. The schedule is what the schedule is. But yeah, I mean, the loss to USF, I mean, everybody's got warts. Like, if we're looking at warts though, I mean, UNT seems like they only have 1. Tulane, that was a pretty ugly UTSA debacle. And then there's the Ole Miss factor, which is I don't know how much. I don't factor in Navy's loss to Notre Dame or Tulane's loss to Ole Miss. A little bit. Yeah.
Not when comparing these teams.
A little bit.
I don't think so. Elsewhere in the G5, James Madison beat App State 58-10. The problem with James Madison is they equally have a really bad schedule. It's in the 100s. And they have 1 win over a team with a winning record. That is Old Dominion, who is 7-3. And is probably not going to play for the Sun Belt Championship. So, because they're in the same division as JMU. So it's not great. JMU, I think, is still the highest G5 in the AP poll now, but they were not ranked by the committee. We will see if they get ranked or not by the committee there. Also, no college game day at James Madison. That was an erroneous report by a local reporter. It is going to USC, Oregon. One other thing I want to say about the American, I wanted to send our condolences to the American Conference and everybody there. Chuck Sullivan, longtime communications director with the former Big East and with the American, died Saturday after a long battle with melanoma. He was only 54 years old. News came down on Sunday. Chuck was like the nicest guy to work with. Yeah. He was always so incredibly helpful. I didn't know he was sick until the news came down on Sunday. And he just loved that conference, was always trying to promote it. I looked up the last text that I'd gotten from him from like a month ago, and he wanted to have us fix something because we had called them the American Athletic Conference, which they're not anymore. I had put American Conference, but it had gotten switched, because he was always like on top of that stuff, like in a really nice way. I love talk pro wrestling with him. He loved that. I'd see him at American events. I'd see him at the college football playoff. He would work communications there. And I talked to some people in the conference today who had said, like, even up to Saturday, Chuck was like, I got to get the football release out. I got to get the numbers out. Like, he was always hard worker, great guy. Dave, I know you knew him too, but just wanted to send our thoughts out.
Yeah, I think in this business, you deal with PR people. They're not all great people. They're not all great at their jobs. And Chuck was both of those. Great guy, really good at his job, can disagree with you respectfully, but was helpful. And, I think the conference is going to miss him. Obviously, the people that love him are going to miss him. And it was just sad to see that.
Yeah. Some other games of note. Miami beat NC State 41-7. I don't know if people have realized that Notre Dame or Miami has like really picked it up the last 2 weeks, destroying Syracuse and NC State.
Yeah,
Hold on. Let me finish. They've only allowed 3 points the last 2 games, outside of garbage time, is in the final drive. They allowed a touchdown on the final drive of both games when it was out of reach. NC State, which put up like 500 something yards against Georgia Tech a week ago, did not cross midfield against Miami until the final drive when they got their 1 touchdown. And it's Miami's not going to be up with Notre Dame yet, but Miami has found something these last couple of games. And if they can finish strong and beat Pitt the way Notre Dame did, they will deserve to be back in that conversation.
I think so. They were really impressive on Saturday. I think NC State's pretty good, and watching their offense just get absolutely demolished was kind of jarring because I thought they could move the ball a little bit. Chris, do you care that it was 7-0 Miami against Syracuse with a minute left in the first half?
No, because it's not like Syracuse did much of anything either. Outside, like 3 of the last 4 games, Miami's had kind of a slow start, but including the Stanford game. But the game is never in doubt. They beat Stanford 40-something-7. Like, other than the SMU game, they're giving up like 7 points in a game. So I have Miami still ahead of Notre Dame. Notre Dame also beat NC State by a similar score. Furthers the case that I think Miami and Notre Dame are on the same tier, but committee probably won't as well. Just keep an eye. I'm curious about Miami. They've been playing well for all the complaints people had about them. Oregon 42, Minnesota 13. Nothing really to say here. Dante Moore, I think, had 3 incompletions. They destroyed them. However, I did actually drop Oregon down to 11 from 8 on my rankings, and it's not because of anything Oregon did. It's simply because Notre Dame had a more important win. They jumped them. Oklahoma had a better win. They jumped them. And Miami followed Notre Dame because I have Miami ahead of Notre Dame. But Oregon does not have a top 25 win with Iowa losing to USC the way it did 1 week later. And they have the 10-point loss at home to Indiana. And so, like, the resume on paper is not very good. It's pretty much the same thing as BYU. The advanced metrics, though, love Oregon. They're like top 6, top 5 team in a lot of these various things, SP plus and all that. But if you look at the schedule, there's not that much there. What do you have any thoughts?
I don't disagree necessarily, and maybe. So my thought coming in is like, if you're in the Big Ten or the SEC and you're sitting there on Selection Sunday at 10-2, you can feel pretty good about getting in. There's an element of, well, we got to get there and see who's standing there, and maybe that's not true, but generally, I think it's still going to be pretty true. So just keep winning.
Yeah. So apologies, I have a bit of barking dogs here. My wife's getting home. I don't want to cut this show. It's too much
let's
work.
move on. We'll hit on Virginia and Duke elsewhere in the ACC. And Virginia, we weren't sure if Chandler Morris was going to play in this game. He did. They dominated. Duke, this was not very competitive at any point. Virginia ran this up early and it was pretty impressive. 17-3 at half. it was 31-3 before they added a couple touchdowns late. So Virginia has been kind of a hard team to figure this year, but certainly in the conversation at this point still to win the ACC and obviously get in the playoff.
Yeah.
With Chris, we hit on this a couple weeks ago, but a lot of these conference races are still wide open. The American and the ACC probably the top of that list of like, I really don't know how this is going to shake out. It does the Big Ten we kind of know, and the SEC is kind of like there's some pieces that have to move around, but when the playoff is what the playoff is, like I don't really care all that much how the SEC championship shakes out.
Yeah, BYU blew out TCU. I forgot I didn't have the score down here. And Arizona beat Cincinnati 30-24, which means, we were going into so Cincinnati BYU this week. It was going to be winner of this game takes sole control of second place in the Big 12, but instead Cincinnati lost to Arizona. So if BYU wins, they're almost assuredly a lock for second place in a spot in the Big 12 championship game. But if Cincinnati gets the upset, then could really shake out whoever. I don't know. There's a lot's going to have to happen to figure out who gets second place in the Big 12. So big game coming up. Arizona 7-3 now. Brent Brennan, his second year, doing a good job after a rough first year. People weren't sure about his job status. They're looking real solid. Noah Fafita, almost 300 passing yards, looked really good. Clemson 20, Louisville 19. I watched this game from the vet ER on Friday. I don't know if I told the story in here about my wife running into a fence post a month or so ago.
Oh yeah, I did.
Getting a concussion, had a bloody face, it was a mess. That same damn fence post has like a little screw where it connects to the thing, and our dogs went running into the field like they always do, and it nicked the side of our dog, and so she cut herself, and we had to go take her in and get stitches. So she's all right, everything's good. But I watched this game just in the vet, and I think I had as much fun watching it as Louisville fans did, because this was brutal.
A disaster of a football game. Very funny, but good Lord.
The finish and the way both teams were trying to lose the game was pretty darn ugly. But Clemson ultimately gets the win. If they beat Furman, they're going to a bowl game. Pretty much, I think they're 5-5 now. So Clemson's going to end up going to a bowl.
Don't sleep
Biggest
on the Paladins.
disaster
Don't sleep on the Paladins.
Louisville, 3 losses by 3 points or fewer this year. Now you have 2 overtime losses and then this one. That is the margin of a great season and a not so great season. So we'll see. Wake Forest 28, UNC 12. UNC now needs to win out to make a bowl game. I didn't notice until I went back and looked at it. Wake Forest, like 20 seconds left. They've got 4th and goal at the 2. They're up 9. They run the ball, get a touchdown. That's the final score.
Well, I can offer some more context here.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. I
think that they were okay kneeling it out, but Belichick kept calling timeouts. He did the same thing against Clemson when they were down by like 30 or whatever. Kept calling timeouts. So then they get a 4th down. He calls them the timeout, and they're like, screw it, we're going to run it. And they ran it in for a touchdown. And then Belichick gave him the blow by, whatever. Like, I don't really care about this. I will say, like, UNC, the offense is so bad. The defense has improved. The defense, dare I say, is good. The offense is horrible. And if you can put 20 on UNC, you're probably going to beat them. But they just, they can't really run the ball. They're not very explosive. Like, Jordan Shipp's okay. Like, Damon June, I do like him as a player, but the offensive line's not great. We
do not need to go through the roster of a 4-6 North Carolina.
We don't, but I'm just saying offensively they are consistently a mess. Defensively, they like looking at that group that played TCU in the season opener and looking at that group now, unrecognizable. The offense, though, I know those guys. I've seen those guys all season long.
Bigger props to Jake Dickert, though, who has Wake Forest at 7 they're 7-3. They beat SMU on a last-second field goal, and they probably should have beaten Georgia Tech if an offsides call had been called. So I thought this might be the worst P4 team in the country, and they're 7-3. So he's doing a really good job.
It's interesting that he left Wazoo, Jonathan Smith left Oregon State, and it's interesting that he's had significantly more success.
Yeah. San Diego State 17, Boise State 7. This game was like pulling teeth. It was raining hard in the first half. Boise State has allowed 52 passing yards total over the last 2 games, and they have lost both of them. And neither of them were to Air Force. It was to Fresno State and San Diego State. San Diego State ran for, I think, like 300 yards or something like that. Lucky Sutton had a big game. San Diego State now alone atop the Mountain West. Second place is probably going to be something like UNLV or Boise, or someone else might get in there. We're going to have to figure that out still. Jacksonville State 35, Kennesaw State 26. Wanted to put this here because Jack State under Charles Kelly, first year, 6-0 at Conference USA play. They are doing pretty well. They scored a Hail Mary on the final play of the first half that was like 10 yards short of the end zone, but it got tipped right to a guy who was like streaking by, and he took it in for a touchdown. So big one there. And New Mexico beat Colorado State 20-17. New Mexico 7-3 this year. They low-key might be the best vibes team of the season. Like everybody loves what New Mexico's doing. Jason X, a lot of fun. They got the turquoise jerseys that are awesome. And this is a program that had Bronco Mendenhall leave them after 1 year to go to Utah State. They lost Devin Dampier. They lost Jason Beck. They lost Mendenhall. They lost all their good players from a 5-7 team. And now they're 7-3.
Yeah, this is not how the award ever works, Chris, but I think you'd be, to me, hard-pressed to find anybody in the country doing a better job than Jake Dickert and Jason Eck, the 2 coaches we just talked about.
Yeah.
Usually it's going to be like, I don't know, Lane might win it. I don't know. It's usually somebody that's like in the top 5 that like was pretty good. But I think the degree of difficulty for what he has done and obviously what Jake Dickert has done, I think is higher.
Absolutely. All right. And with that, we'll move to the helmet stickers. Oh, where is it? Here we go. This is a segment of the show where we shout out a player who maybe didn't get much love nationally for their performance, but we want to shout them out. I'm going to go with Michigan wide receiver Andrew Marsh, 12 catches, 189 yards in the 2-point win over Northwestern. They needed every single one of them. We've been talking for a while, like, if you're Michigan, you got to get Bryce Underwood some receivers, and then you're off to the races. I think they found one here in Andrew Marsh, who's a freshman, who's had 8 catches, had a big game against USC, a big game here, made some really impressive catches. This guy looks like he might become a dude for Michigan, for Bryce Underwood, and that's what they need. The program needs moving forward, a real like go-to threat for Underwood to throw to. They might have it. Big game and one they absolutely needed. Andrew Marsh.
Can he do it in a football stadium, though, is the big question I have for him moving forward. My helmet sticker, Ahmad Hardy, Missouri. We know this guy. We've seen, well, some of us have seen him. Chris hasn't seen him all year. 25 carries, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns against Mississippi State. That is a lot of yards. Unbelievable game. I have to think that's the high. I haven't seen anybody run for more this year. It's been a while since we've seen a 300-yard game. I would be shocked if somebody's run more than that in a game this year. Maybe not even last year. It's been a while, I feel like, since I've seen a 3 Bills game. So shout out to Missouri and Ahmad Hardy.
He is the leading rusher in the country, Ahmad Hardy, 1,346 yards. I'm looking at the game logs here to see if anybody else had anything. We had, the leading rusher.
I would have remembered it.
You know who the number 2 rusher is? Jacksonville State, Cam Cook, formerly of TCU. He had a 218-yard game against Sam Houston. Robert Henry Jr. at UTSA, really big year, but nothing over 200. That would probably be it. Also, Mississippi State's run defense, which we know is bad, 120th in the country in yards per carry allowed. Ahmad Hardy made that a lot worse. All right. Now we're going to end the show the way we always do, and that is by remembering some guys.
It's better than this. Guys being dudes.
And I wanted to, in the spirit of a big Texas A&M comeback, go in the reverse. I'm going to go UCLA quarterback Josh Rosen. Apologies to Texas A&M fans. UCLA quarterback from 2015 to 2017. I know he was a first-round pick, and we don't normally count stuff like that. But he didn't do anything in
He's out of the
NFL,
league in
so it
like
counts.
2 years. So.
Yeah, I'm going to remember him for college football, including in 2017 when he overcame a 34-point deficit against Texas A&M in the Rose Bowl to win that game 45-44. That was the second biggest comeback of all time behind somebody we already talked about.
Smile.
That's right, John L.
The
So
lasting
Josh
image of that game, Chris, is Travion Williams busting a huge touchdown run and then grabbing the band baton and like doing the march back to the sideline. I don't think Kevin Sumlin was super thrilled with that. But then I don't think they scored again after that. I think that made it 44-10.
There's two things I remember. That comeback and the hot tub in the dorm. Those are the two things I remember about Josh Rosen.
I'm going to go with, we're going to go a little bit further back. In spirit of Oklahoma, pushing for a playoff spot, Quentin Griffin, our resident high knees runner. Always liked watching him play. Very shifty. He kind of ran like Barry Sanders, Chris. I don't know if you recall this. But Quentin Griffin, very fun running back. 3-year starter, second team All-American. The year that they won the national championship, just a massive season. I think he ran for 1,884 yards that year. Career, 3,756 rushing yards. Just a very fun player. I just remember his running style was always very unique. And he was like the best offensive weapon on an Oklahoma national championship team that was very much run by defense. Shout out to Torrance Marshall. So, we only remember two guys, but Travion Williams, Torrance Marshall. I did give Rocky Kalmus a shout out a few years back. A few weeks back. We're remembering a lot of guys today, Chris.
No, we're not. We're remembering three. And we have, so the last two episodes, I mentioned that we were running low nominations from the listeners. And oh my God, I got so many emails from people who have sent us nominations to remember some guys. So we are good for a while. You do not need to send any more in for a month at least. So thank you everybody for responding to that. I love that the last segment we do on the show gets the most feedback. That means you're all listening through the rest of the show. So I like that. But we're going to go to our old friend Niall from Scotland, who emailed us with his nomination. He says, as you guys know, I am a Rams fan. I loved hard-hitting Rams safety Adam Archuleta from the early 2000s. I Googled his college career. Dude had 54 TFLs for Arizona State at linebacker before moving to safety for the Rams. He popped back into my head because I heard him announcing Bears-Bengals NFL game today. Cheers.
All right.
Yeah, I like that.
I will say the only Archuleta that obviously I remember Adam Archuleta, but in the spirit of BYU's success, Chris, what's your relationship with American Idol?
You're gonna go with what's his name?
David Archuleta.
David Archuleta. That I honestly mixed the two of them up.
He Absolutely. Was, I believe he was like pretty Mormon and was like second on American Idol. But,
well, anyway, we're talking about Adam Archuleta, who was the Pac-12 defense. He was the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year in 2000. One of the 3 finalists for the Butkus Award. Had 127 tackles, 97 solo tackles that year, with 15 TFLs, first team All-American. Yeah, I remember him on those Rams teams, like the Greatest Show on Turf Rams there. So we remember that offense, but he's the guy I remember from that defense.
I don't remember him much as a college player. I think just in part because in Arkansas in the 1990s, it had been very hard to watch Arizona State football, but I do remember him in the NFL for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the nomination, Niall. Thank you, everybody else, for the nominations that we have. We have a lot. We will get to those. And that's going to do it here, man. We only have 2 full Saturdays of college football left. It's coming up on us quickly. I had a lot of fun this past weekend. Looking forward to this next one. But first, we will be back on Tuesday for the College Football Playoff Reaction Show. We will be live on Twitter and the YouTube channel whenever the ESPN show goes live in between the Champions Classic basketball games. So I'm looking forward to doing that. David, anything else you want to say?
No.
Thank you.
We're good. We had one of our listeners that was asking about Outback appetizers and tried to go with a bloomin' shrimp, and I warned him you shouldn't do that. But hey, It happens.
Thank you for that advice. All right. We will be back on Tuesday, and then we'll have our normal recap show on Thursday. So for David Ubben, I'm Chris Vannini. Thank you for listening to Bunch Formation, and we will talk to you on Tuesday.
In Miami, if you want to make the playoff, bring back the turnover chain, please.